Now, we started off talking at the edges, so my first admonition would simply be this: you don't cross a bridge unless you're willing to leave the edge. And we have to leave something behind, and that is this: stop nitpicking. We all do it. And remember, you got your own nuts, okay? Your group's got its own nuts too. So don't be too quick to pick somebody else's. Let's go to the second thing, though. What are we going to find in the center that we think is common? I'll tell you what I think we're going to find. I think we're going to find that we're all guilty of the exact same ism. Now, I get it. If I said to you, you probably think I'm thinking about racism, and you might say, well, I'm not a racist. Other people in this room might be racist, but I'm not a racist. Really? Well, you are something else. You're an otherist, just like me, just like all of us. We are all otherists. Here's what I mean. All of us seek to find a way to separate from others. This is ingrained in our fallen nature. I first discovered this, and I call this otherism, but I first discovered it when I was showing my wife's family. I was on duty. I came over on a lunch break, and I was wearing my uniform, and my family, my wife's born in Germany, her German relatives were visiting from Germany, and they hardly speak any English, but they saw the gun, and they wanted to know, what kind of gun do you carry? So I pulled it out of my holster, and I showed it to them. I love this gun. And they looked at that gun, and they said, it's garbage. What? Why would you say that? Because they looked on the brand there, and they could see right there that it says Austria. Built in Austria. Really? So because it's an Austrian gun, you think it's garbage? That's right. They were German. If it's Austrian, it's got to be garbage. Well, think about this for a second. Here's the region of the world where my wife's family are from, okay? This little speck right here. You see that line? That's the line that separates Germany from Austria. They live about 2 miles from the Austrian border, okay? I've been there. You cross over the border. I can't tell the difference between these two groups. I mean, to me, they all look pretty much the same. They're all dressed in the same goofy clothes when they dance and eat the same goofy food. They all speak the same language. Oh, yeah, but you know what? We're not the same as them. Those folks are Austrians. And we know because there is a line in the dirt that separates us. By the way, that line isn't even all that recent, okay? It was in a different place before World War. But it's okay. There's a line there, so they know that side of the line, you're Austrian. This side of the line, we're German. And these lines are relatively post-war arbitrary. But they separate from each other on the basis of that line in the dirt. That's the other side. I noticed the same thing working in gangs in South Central Los Angeles. We had gang maps hanging on our wall. Each clique is defined by Crips and Bloods. So in Los Angeles, we have these different neighborhoods. You don't want to be from this clique and be caught over here in this clique. Make sense? And the only thing that separates this stuff is, well, I mean, I'll just zero in on it. If you were to meet the people on both sides, the young men who are on both sides of these territories, you would find that they are very similar. They share almost the way they dress is very similar. The colors are different. As a matter of fact, this is how they designate the difference between each group. They are racially, ethnically the same. They are culturally grown up in the same part of Los Angeles, but they separate based on color. By the way, there's a great barbecue place on one side of this line. There's a great barbecue place. I've been to both of them. They are awesome. The food is almost identical. And even the way they would throw signs is very similar. And their language and their writing is very similar, except for color. As a matter of fact, the only thing that divides these two people, these two groups, is this line called Slauson, right here, that street. And the fact that the only way they can tell each other apart is to wear, they are so much the same that if they don't wear different colors, they'll be mistaken for each other. If you're not wearing your colors and you're in somebody else's neighborhood, the first question you're going to get is, where are you from? If you have the wrong answer, if you're from someplace else, if you're other, you're probably going to die that night. And don't think that you are any different than these folks. in either one of these groups. We are all like this. We all find a way to draw a line and divide from each other. It's always been us and them, and we will find different ways to divide. There's probably some Titan fans in this room. Marcus Mariota is injured now, okay? Good luck with that. Our team, though, our team's better. Don't we do that all the time? It's just our teams. We separate over beliefs. My beliefs, your beliefs, my customs, your customs. We will find ways to separate. My candidate, your candidate. We do this all the time. My side of town, your side of town. I think if all of us were identical, we would find a way to separate based on addresses. I have an odd address, you have an even address. Odd address people are odd. What are we doing here? This is otherism. This is our desire to find a way to separate from each other. There's another word for otherism. It's called sin. Sin is what otherism really is. But I want to show you how deeply ingrained it is. We've done research now on this, and it's pretty interesting research. We've done studies to show how ingrained it is for us to separate from others. Do you realize that amongst white Americans, 91% of our closest friends are white. Only 1% are black. It's not much different on the other side of black families and friends. About 83% of their closest friends are black. Only about 8% are white. And this is interesting because think about it, they're 17% of the population, so most people they could be friends with are of a different color, yet they still only have 8% that are white. We all do this. It's ingrained. This is why if you want to see this up close, take a look at people's wedding photos. And you will see they are relatively monochromatic. I don't care what group it is. I don't care what ethnic group it is. Most wedding photos are relatively monochromatic because most of us reject people who don't look like us. And the science tells us this. There have been studies on this. Take a look at marriages, for example. It turns out that the people who are more inclined to be in an interracial marriage are people who have closer colors of skin. So Asians and Hispanics are far more likely to marry white people, and white people in reverse, than blacks and whites marrying each other. As a matter of fact, of all the racial marriages that are out there, very few are actually between white and black. Why? Because the more different the skin color, the less likely we are to be attracted to each other. Why is that? Is it just cultural? No, it's actually in our DNA. And we now know it by way of scientific testing. Let me show it to you. Is this racism? Well, I think it's otherism. So I'm going to give you some studies here to look at. We always try to avoid people who are not like us. This is not just true for white people. This is true for any group. All of us do this. Let me show you the science. For example, we have done studies in which if you are the same race, okay, but I express myself different than you do facially, so when I'm happy, I express it a certain way, and you do the same. If we're the same race, but you have different facial expressions than I do, I am far more likely to reject you on the basis of nothing more than different facial expressions. Also, you are far more likely to be marrying somebody who either looks like you or someone in your family. They've done studies on this. They've done studies of close friends and done the personality tests and discovered that people who score the same on personality tests are far more likely to be close friends. That kind of seems like it might be natural, right? But we also gravitate toward people who have the same educational level as us. As a matter of fact, if you have good friends and I measured their IQ, I'm going to find they're within 4 or 5 points of you. If you're not the same educational level or you're not the same level of IQ, you're another. Not only that, how about this? I think this is so funny. We did a test in Minnesota in which we found that co-workers who hung out together off duty, off the job, And then we separated them and we asked them what their hobbies and likes and interests were. And of course, they're all the same. If you don't like what I like, I'm not likely to stay with you. We even did a test of all people who are married. Do you realize that if you're married, your DNA of your spouse is far more like yours than the people you're not married to? How is it that we know to marry people who have similar DNA? It's ingrained in our fallen nature. It's not a matter of these isms, racism, ageism, whatever ism you want to put on it. The bigger problem is not racism, because you might say, I'm not a racist. Well, you're one of these because you are an otherist. We are all otherists. It's who we are. This is the one thing we share. And why do we do that? What causes us to do this? You know what it is. It's pride. Pride is what keeps us drawn to people who are just like us. Basically, it's like, I like me, and you're not me. And this is what causes us to separate from other people. It's a pride issue. Let's go back to our bridge for a second. So we've got to start, I think, first by stepping away and leaving something behind. You've got to stop nut picking, stop denying that you've got any nuts in your group. But when you finally get to the middle, realize you do have something in common with everybody else on this planet. You will find something to divide over, because that is in our nature. We are otherists.